Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Reclaim Your Profit Potential, the Pricing Overhaul Method. My name is Colin Mahan, and I'm a Director of High Growth Impact Entrepreneurs and Head of Sponsorships at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit improving access and knowledge and entrepreneurship to advance economic progress for all. As you're going to see in the chat in just a moment, the Nasdaq Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to help entrepreneurs fuel prosperity, no matter where their journey begins. Be sure to check out those links and resources shared in the chat. Now we're going to launch a few polls to take a step back and take a temperature gauge on how all of you are doing today. We use this information to guide the programs we provide for this global community of entrepreneurs. So thank you for voting in these polls. The first one, how are you feeling about your business? Are you optimistic? Are you in survival? Let us know. If there are specific topics or challenges you'd like us to create resources for, feel free to share them in the chat as well. Now, some more housekeeping items before we get started. Let us know where you're dialing in from the chat by dropping your location in the chat. Bernice is already from San Diego. We'd love to see where you're joining us from today. Also, we're going to have live Q&A near the end of the session, so please feel free to submit those questions to us at any time using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to get to as many as we can. Let's see, where are we coming from? New Jersey, Atlanta, England. Oh, nice. Georgia, Huntsville, Alabama, Times Square. All right, New Jersey, Atlanta. Welcome, everybody. Philly. Love that. Well, welcome, everybody. And as you're answering these final polls, I'd like to take the moment to recognize the incredible support of our corporate partners. The work that we do at the center wouldn't be possible without all the generosity and belief of our funders and partners, including NASDAQ, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, KPMG, Walmart, the Asian Innovation Hub, Wilson Sonsini, the Nuri Foundation, KKR, and BPM. We're deeply grateful for their partnership and hope you'll join us in sharing that appreciation as well. All right, this last poll, what's keeping you up at night? Looks like sales and finance are at the top of the key, but a pretty good mix. Well, the good news is for you, we're going to dive deep with our special guest today. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest. Erin B. Haag is the two times exited founder, best-selling author, and creating of the Pricing Overhaul. Erin, welcome.
Well, hello. How are you?
Doing great. So excited to have you. I'm going to pass it over to you. I'm looking to look
Okay,
forward.
amazing. Let me share my screen and pull up my slides, and I will begin. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here for Reclaim Your Profit Potential. My name is Erin B. Haag. I am the creator of a method called Pricing Overhaul, and I am a two-time exited founder. I am a self-proclaimed math nerd, full-blooded Capricorn. I am a girl mom all the way, committed daily to scoring cool mom points for my daughters. Native Floridian, I'm coming to you from Palm Beach, and I am a lover of travel, wine, and cheese. Fun fact, I am also a certified sommelier because I didn't have, enough to do on my plate already. But what I want to talk about today is how I have been able to found, scale, and exit two very profitable companies and how you can do the same, or at least if you don't plan on exiting, build a company that is valuable and worth selling because a sellable business is a profitable business. So, company number one, I opened in 2009. I was 27 years old. I built it. I sold it 9 years later for 40 times my original investment. In that company, the kicker was that I was able to achieve 90% recurring revenue through a very strategic pricing and revenue model. Company number two, I established 3 years ago in 2023. I built, scaled, and sold it. I just sold it last Tuesday, March 31st, for a 20x return. And in 3 years, that company generated 82% recurring revenue from, I have a typo, I see that, from a service that I was told could not be recurring. So the pattern is that both of these exits were built on the foundation of a recurring revenue model. This provided predictable cash flow, it created scalability, it allowed both businesses to be extremely profitable, and for me, most importantly, that they were sellable. So there are a lot of reasons people blame for failing businesses. The economy, marketing, sales, all these things. But really, the number one reason most businesses fail is because their pricing model is not set up for long-term sustainability or profitability. So most people who get into business, we get into business because we are skilled at a specific craft. We are passionate about our work. We're really good at what we do. We're experts in our field. We love helping people. We want to serve. But most business owners are not trained in business, educated in financial modeling, skilled in pricing strategy, or experts in profitability. And so we lie to ourselves as early stage entrepreneurs. And we say, if I'm good at what I do, the money is naturally going to come, right? We hear that saying, build it and they will come. Well, that isn't really true. So believing that skill alone guarantees financial success is the most common misconception that keeps talented professionals stuck and entrepreneurs from scaling and making the money that they desire and that they deserve. So the most the biggest mistake I'm going to say is that mistake number one, people don't know how to price their services. And so from a pricing perspective, they make this critical error from the start. Your pricing is the mathematical foundation to a successful business. If the math doesn't math, it doesn't matter how many leads you have coming in. It doesn't matter how many sales you're making. If the math doesn't math, you will never be profitable. And what ends up happening is entrepreneurs follow a very flawed system that leads to underpricing their services. So, step one is they do market research. We hear a lot about market research. I hate market research. I'll tell you why. Because business owners aren't really doing real market research. What they're doing is they're searching online, they're looking at others, their competitors, and they are believing that what their competitors are charging is the right price, right? They believe that that person must be doing something right. They must have priced it correctly. Two, when they look at their competitors, they're finding businesses that they believe are successful, believe being the key word, and they're studying their pricing structure. And then step three, they are copying or undercutting pricing because they believe that undercutting is going to give them some sort of competitive advantage. Now, the problem with market research, what people are charging. Okay, based on competitor analysis, industry averages and what others seem to be doing, we often think that that is actually profitable, but it isn't always a profitable model. What we need to do instead is we need to calculate our pricing based on real costs, our desired profit margins, our desired income, and a sustainable business math so that you're actually able to scale and sell. Unless you're able to look at your competitors' P&Ls, which you're going to find that very difficult, if you copy or do market research and believe that what a competitor is charging is the right price, you are making that determination based on unknown information. Okay. Then there's this domino effect. So we copy pricing from businesses that we don't know if they're actually profitable. And most are not. And then the entire industry that you're working in becomes underpriced because one business copies their competitor or undercuts, who copied their competitor, who copied their competitor, who copied their competitor. And somewhere along the way, someone in there decides that they are actually going to undercut even more for that competitive advantage. And it becomes a race to the bottom. And it really creates an ecosystem in your industry where profitability is nearly impossible. So there's this industry myth. There is this myth that there are some industries that are more profitable than others. And this keeps business owners who open businesses in that industry accepting low margins. And they just assume, well, if I'm going into this business or into this industry, I can expect to make less. But the reality is, profitability is an individual decision. Every industry out there has profitable businesses. The difference is in how the services are priced and what businesses are actually willing to do the math and say, no, 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 I actually have to price here where the rest of the market is priced here, and I don't know how they can afford to be priced there. So the shift comes when if it only takes one business owner, and an entire market to do the math to say, wait a minute, why are these industry standards so low? Raise their prices, increase the industry standards, and shift the market. And what will happen when you are the one to do that in your industry? Everybody else is going to be thanking the dear Lord that you did the math and now gave them permission to increase their rates. But we deal with a lot of trash talk as business owners. We have a ton of mindset blocks around pricing, how much we can, how much we should charge. So, the biggest mindset block that I see is that I just can't charge more than my competitors. This is kind of goes back to that market research, and that is just false. In fact, if you are priced similarly to your competitors, you are adding yourself to a crowded market and it is harder for you to sell. The businesses that are priced above the market, believe it or not, it's easier to sell. You attract more people. And so, this idea that we can't charge more than our competitors because everybody else is charging this is a mindset block that we have to shift. And we actually need to say that, in fact, we must charge more than our competitors to set ourselves apart. Two, we believe that we can't charge more than we as entrepreneurs can personally afford. So, some of us might have services that we sell or products that we sell that we, based on our current financial situation, cannot afford. And a lot of times, that prevents us from charging what we need to charge because we say to ourselves, well, I couldn't afford that. And we start spending our we start pricing based on our own pocketbooks versus what our ideal clients can afford and actually are able and willing to pay. Mindset block number 3 is those of us, especially in service based businesses, a lot of people believe I can't earn more and help those in need. That providing a service and helping people is contradictory to earning money. And I have to choose. It's impossible for me to serve everybody in need. And it is impossible for me to make money at the same time. And this really comes down to our belief in accessibility. We believe, a lot of us believe, that if we provide a service that is needed desperately by our community, that we need to be accessible to everybody. But if you are financially unstable, you're not profitable, you're not financially sustainable, you can't keep your doors open, and you can't keep serving people. So you have to be financially accessible to yourself first before you can attempt to offer accessibility from a pricing standpoint to others. Mindset block number 4 is I can't raise my rates without upsetting clients. And this is the one that gets most people. I don't want to upset my clients. I don't want to upset my clients. The truth is, the majority of our clients won't be upset. We as humans in this world are used to prices increasing daily. We are used to it. And what do? We continue to buy the things that we need. When eggs were $95 a carton, we were still buying eggs. When gas is now up to $6 a gallon in some area, guess what? We're still buying gas, right? So, do we love it when prices increase? No. Do we continue to pay that? Yes. A lot of people will say to me, well, I offer a service that is a luxury. And that is where you really have to shift your mindset around. You might believe that it's a luxury, but your client, to them, it is a necessity. I use my housekeeper as an example. I have had Fabio for 10 years, and he is a necessity. We would be living in squalor if we did not have Fabio. Every time Fabio has had to increase his rates, I am like, fine. Why? Because where other people might see that as a luxury, I see it as an absolute necessity so that my kids aren't being raised in filth. And I am willing to pay more. It's easier for me to pay Fabio more than it is to find somebody else who I don't know, who I don't trust yet, to come into my house each week and clean. What? To save a couple bucks? So there's now pricing mistake number 2, and it is one-time pricing. So if you're a service business or even a product-based business, you can offer one service, one product at a time in exchange for one payment. So this creates like a very transactional approach to pricing where there is a constant cycle of having to get new clients into the door because you're constantly having to sell one service, get paid, another service, get paid. Or even if you have repeating clients, there is no guarantee as to if or when that client will purchase again. So when you base off of one-time non-recurring packages or pricing models without any recurring revenue, you really cannot forecast your revenue. Every month you start at zero and you're freaking out about how you're going to sell enough to make as much money or more than you did the month prior. This creates a business model that is based on lead generation, like your business becomes lead generation versus client delivery. And so it really it stunts growth. Growth becomes nearly impossible. There's also no stability. So your income fluctuates wildly based on sales cycles. So one month you can have an amazing infusion of cash, and then the next month it's like nothing, right? You have a drought of cash. And that just creates constant ongoing financial stress for any business owner. And then the third is just it's not scalable. Growth requires proportional effort. More revenue means more sales work. So you end up in this type of one-time non-recurring pricing model hitting a ceiling where time becomes the enemy and you are completely limited based on your output capacity. What this creates dependence, dependence on lead generation. That is like your primary focus. Where is my next client coming in? Where's the next lead? Where is my next sale? How am I going to get cash? And you're just always chasing the next client, the next sale, the next project, just to keep generating revenue. Instead of focusing on client retention and delivery and client results. And this is what a recurring revenue model is going to do for you. You are able to build lasting relationships with your clients. You're able to focus on exceptional delivery. You're able to create amazing value. And it just leads to sustainable, scalable growth. So I've talked a lot about recurring revenue. And this is it, guys. This is the game changer for your business. Recurring revenue has clients paying for ongoing services on an ongoing basis. Every single month, you are guaranteed a certain amount of money. It's guaranteed. You do not start at zero. And anytime a new client comes in, you're simply adding to your revenue pot. And so instead of charging once and having to start over, you're building a relationship where value flows continuously and your revenue and cash flow flows continuously. This simple shift, I'm telling you, this shift transforms your business from constantly chasing cash and clients into a really sustainable engine. What recurring revenue does. So I've talked about stabilizing cash flow. Two, it improves financial decision making because guess what? You know how much money is coming in. And if you have financial goals and you have target margins that you want to hit, you're able to actually measure the difference between where your revenue is now and what you need to achieve in order to hit those targets. Recurring revenue also increases client retention. Businesses that have a recurring revenue model keep their clients longer. It increases lifetime value. So the longer a client is with you, the more they spend with you, and it does increase profitability. So the real result, excuse me, recurring revenue doesn't just stabilize your business. It transforms how valuable your business is, and your business is an asset. So when clients stay longer, they pay more consistently. Every single metric that matters increases, inevitably goes up. So we talked about higher lifetime value. Clients who pay monthly stay longer, they spend more over time. A $500 per month client for 2 years is $12,000 versus if that client only came in for a one-time service or project, paid $2,000 and they're gone, and then now you're on to the next client. Higher revenue, without a doubt. Predictable recurring payments compound. So each new client adds to your baseline. It creates exponential growth instead of starting from zero every single month. And the most important, and especially for those of you who might be considering exiting your company one day, is a higher profit margin and valuation. So recurring revenue businesses command 2 to 4 times higher valuations than businesses that don't have a recurring revenue model. And this is because buyers are willing to pay premium multiples for predictable, stable cash flow. Just sold my second company last week. And the reason I was able to get as much for it as I did, the buyer did not negotiate on my asking price and was an immediate yes, is because she was walking into a business that had guaranteed recurring revenue on the books for more than 12 months. So her risk, financial risk, was completely decreased. So, step one. Whew, you got to know your numbers. Profitability starts with understanding what your business financial structure is. And there are three metrics. These are the three that are the foundation to scalable, sellable businesses. And you have to track them relentlessly. I do this quarterly. So, of your gross revenue, you want your payroll margin to be at or below 35% of your gross revenue. So, you want to keep your total payroll costs at or below 35% of revenue. This includes salaries, benefits, contractor fees, any of your payroll tax liabilities. Anything exceeding this threshold erodes your profit margin. And this does not mean pay your people less. No, I do not believe in going on a cutting spree to cut payroll and cut operating expense. Instead, I believe in increasing revenue to balance this margin out. Same goes for operating expenses, at or below 35%. Your rent, your software, your marketing, your overhead, all those things, you want to be at or below 35%. Now, some businesses have higher operating expenses and lower payroll. Some have higher payroll, lower operating expenses. It's really a balance. So these two buckets, so to speak, can borrow from each other, right? A lot of online businesses have like maybe a 10% operating expense. They have like nothing. And so it allows them to hire more people and vice versa. Or the lower your payroll and operating expense margin is, the higher your profit increases. And the target is a minimum 30% profit margin. That is the minimum. When I start working with clients and my certified pricing overhaul coaches work with clients, the majority of businesses, I'm going to talk for service-based businesses because there, I believe, don't quote me on this number, it's like 76% of businesses, small businesses, are service or in service industries. And the average profit margin is 1 to 3%. Yikes. That is not stable. That is not sustainable. And it's definitely not sellable. So, a healthy, sustainable profit margin is at or above 30%. Okay. Anything less really limits your options, it limits your growth, and it limits your ability to one day sell. So, you first want to analyze your revenue model. Is your revenue model based on one-time payments, like single transactions for services rendered? I provide a service, in exchange, you provide a payment. If it is, you already know that there is no predictability. There is no predictability in your business. Or are you on a recurring revenue model with ongoing payments as services are delivered? Because, as I said, it creates stability, predictable cash flow, compounds client lifetime value. And here's the thing, you don't have to be 100% all in on one or the other. Combinations of both are great. I built a business in 3 years where 82% of the revenue was recurring. That meant that 18% of the revenue came from one-time non-recurring payments. That's fine. My first business had 90% recurring payments. That meant that 10% came from one-time non-recurring payments. That's fine. But understand that the higher your percentage of recurring payments, the more stable and the more valuable your business is. So, step three are your service categories. Now, this is a really critical distinction. And this is something that most business owners skip over because the math like just makes their eyes spin. So, a service is not the same as an offer. I want to make this very, very clear. Your services are the core categories of what you deliver, and your offers are how they are packaged and sold. Okay, so a good example is going to be if you have a wellness spa, one service category is massage and one service category is facials. Now, within each of those service categories, there might be different offers, right? There might be different packages for a 50-minute massage, a 90-minute massage, a 2-hour massage, this type of facial, a bee sting facial. I've had that. It's really nice. Like a deep cleansing facial, a collagen facial, and they're all priced, the offers are different. So what you first need to do is not get overwhelmed with the offers, because most likely you're going to scratch your current offers and start over. But you need to focus on identifying your fundamental service categories first. And this clarity is crucial, especially if you're trying to really understand what services you provide that are the most profitable. So here's another category. Here's another example. Let's say you own a gym and you have group classes and you have personal training sessions. Those are two separate service categories, but within each one of those service categories, there might be different price points, packages, the way in which those services are bought and sold. So you have to do a revenue breakdown. And this is like eye-opening to people when you take your service categories and you ask what percentage of revenue comes from each service category. You will find that most likely there is one service category that dominates your revenue. And then you have other service categories that might only be bringing in small percentages. And you really want to ask yourself, one, is it even worth continuing to offer service category C on this slide if it's only generating 5%? Should I invest more of my time and energy into service category A because that's bringing in the most money, and maybe having category B as an alternative service? Okay. In general, the more services you have, the more diluted your profit becomes. And so, if you're able to do no more than three service categories, that's probably ideal. And I can't tell you how many times I've worked with business owners and we've done this, and they're like, holy crap, 71% of my revenue comes from this. And then I've got five other service categories that each like only all five service categories together are only bringing in 29% of my revenue. And then they break that down even more. And of those five, there's only one that is actually significantly contributing revenue. And the rest, it's like 1%, 2%. Are they even worth continuing to offer within your business? Profitability by category. So revenue is going to tell you what's coming in. And so it's important to know what service categories are bringing in the most revenue, but profit is going to tell you what's working. And this is the next step. So within each service category, you then want to determine the profitability of that service category. If you have one service category that has like an extreme profit margin, you might want to dedicate more time to selling more of that service category, because just because one service category is providing the most revenue doesn't mean that it is the most profitable. And so this allows you to analyze the efforts, your time, your energy, your focus of you and your team, and which service category really needs the most focus. And that will allow you to grow your business exponentially. And then step 6 is optimize. You got to focus on what works, right? You just have to double down on the services that generate the highest profitability, highest profit margins, because this is how you scale. And when you're able to let go of all of those other things, even if you love them dearly, but if they're not providing enough revenue, and or they're providing a lot of revenue but they're not as profitable and they're eating up too much of your time, you have to let them go if you want to scale. So the bottom line here is that your pricing cannot be guesswork. It has to be based on the math. And you have to be able to get in and analyze these metrics and numbers. And there are a bunch more that you have to analyze that we don't even have time to get into today. But this really is the shift. If right now your business is not profitable, it's usually not because there's not a demand, it's because you have a pricing problem. And it doesn't matter, like I said at the beginning, if the math isn't mathing, it doesn't matter how many services you sell, how many packages you sell, how many new clients you get in the door. You will never grow, you will never scale, and you will never be fully profitable. So, this is kind of just like a Reader's Digest version of the pricing overhaul method. I wrote a book called Give Yourself a Raise, the Mindset and Math You Need to Get to Your First Million. And I'm giving everyone a free sample of that book. You can download a PDF, you can download an audiobook, and I believe the link is going to be dropped in the chat. And then you can also follow me on all the socials. And if you're wanting to put your business through a pricing overhaul, the entire method is in this book. So download your free sample. That's what I got for you today.
Awesome, Erin. Thank you so much. And I loved all of this. Really good stuff. And everyone seems very grateful.
Yay.
Cynthia says thank you. If you haven't dropped your questions into the Q&A box, please do so. If you dropped it in the chat, there's a lot of these otter plan things that are going all over the place. So if you want to drop your questions into the Q&A box, it helps me not lose them. But we're just going to kick it off. So, Erin, as a product-based
Yeah.
beauty brand, how often should we be reviewing our pricing model? Annually, question mark? Is there a standard percentage of increase based on industry?
How often you should be analyzing your profit and your pricing models is quarterly. Doesn't mean that you're making changes quarterly. It's just that you are measuring quarterly. Clients who work with me, we actually measure monthly, and then we'll do a profit analysis and we'll analyze our metrics like our monthly client value, how much all of our clients are worth to us each month, how much our clients need to be worth to us, and make changes if necessary. But I'm definitely going to say you want to do this quarterly, not necessarily that you will need to make pricing changes quarterly, but you need to measure. Okay. Are there standards? There is an amazing book that I am going to suggest that people read, and it is by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. It's called The Science of Scaling, and it actually talks about how part of it, industry standards don't matter. Just like your competitors' pricing doesn't really matter, it's irrelevant. Industry standards don't matter because an industry standard simply is the status quo, and none of us want to be operating at the status quo. So I hope that answered your
Yeah,
question.
no, that totally did. Well, I hope it did. But Octavia, yeah. Let's see. When it comes to the methodology behind pricing increases, is it best to cold turkey up the prices or give our loyal clients a heads up, email or communication to explain the increase?
I love this question. So, in the pricing overhaul, we have a very strategic rollout, and we actually don't roll out to existing clients first. We roll out to new clients first because new clients don't know the difference. They are much easier to sell. We do this because what it does is it allows you as the business owner to practice, to overcome objections. You're not going to see them as objections because they're clients who don't know any different. And you build your confidence and you see that, oh, people are easily buying at these new prices. Then you break your client list down into three categories. You do not do mass communication. Mass communication is the absolute worst way to roll out pricing changes, and people don't like change. So you start with your list of easy clients and you have communication with them. They're going to very easily switch over. You then start with the list of like, I don't know how these clients are going to, maybe they might, 50% might stay with you, 50% might not. By that point, you're making more money than you were previously with fewer clients transitioned over. So by the time you get to your difficult clients, if they say there's no way anybody's going to pay this, you're like, well, actually, they are, and they have been for the past 3 months. And this is the rate. And if they say goodbye, you don't need them.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Yeah.
Let's see. As a mental health therapist, how can this model be most applied to benefit increased revenue?
Oh, I love this because I work with a lot of therapists and I actually just restructured the pricing of a therapy practice yesterday. So wellness plans, well, one, it would depend if you're pay, cash pay is the way for this. But to enroll your patients onto mental health wellness packages where they're paying once monthly for a certain up to a certain number of sessions with your counselors. And there is like an initial like onboarding where they're probably coming weekly. Then eventually they move to a different tier where they're maybe coming bi-weekly, and then another tier where they might be coming monthly.
Awesome. Is greater than 80% should be recurring, or is there a magic number?
Oh, is there a magic number? I love this. The magic number is the more the better. The minimum is going to be whatever your monthly break even expenses are for operating and payroll. You want your recurring revenue to be equal or greater to that. so that at the very least, every month you have a recurring revenue coming in that covers all of your necessary expenses. So if you are at the 35% operating expense margin, 35% payroll margin, then that's a 70%. But some businesses operate with very low operating and payroll margins, and so it could be less. But that would be like your first goal is to at least cover your monthly expenses with recurring revenue.
Awesome. On that same exact vein of I have payroll at 35%, operating at 35%. What was the last one?
Profit.
Profit. Okay.
Profit. Minimum 30%.
Love it. Do you run experiments when you change prices?
What do you mean?
I don't know, Gail. What do you mean?
What do you mean by experiments? We don't test it. I don't test it. Um, because the math is the math is the math. And so if a business owner wants to reach certain margins, mathematically, there's a number that they have to charge.
Hmm, makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're a math nerd, so I love that.
Yeah.
How to get over the mindset of charging people when you're doing something to help them?
Oh,
Like
I
that.
know. Yeah. So, people who have larger uh, financial resources and people who have fewer financial resources, one isn't more deserving of the other. Everybody is equally deserving of these types of services. What you have to say is if you want to run a business model that targets only low financially resourced clients, you have to be willing to accept the sacrifice and the model that that requires, which is high volume, low pay, and lower margins, or higher, lower volume, higher price services, or somewhere in the middle. What most of my clients do is they go higher pricing, lower volume. And when they have a surplus, it allows them to have scholarships, gifts. They do different types of programs where they can have an X number amount of clients that they service per year at like scholarship rates or discounted rates. So there are a million different creative ways to still be able to service people who have less financial resources without sacrificing your entire business model to do that. And if you want to, like, if you want to have a nonprofit, you can, but everyone here is probably in a for-profit business. And there's a misconception that nonprofits aren't profitable. And actually, nonprofits are some of the most profitable businesses out there. The difference is in how they file and claim and what they do with that profit.
Yep. Still need money in on both.
They'll need
I
money. I
know it
mean,
all too
listen,
well.
these nonprofits have millions and millions and millions of dollar budgets. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, not us, but I know how it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
though. Okay. As a website architect, I have a small startup, small business who only needs web design work and corporate clients. I make more with corporates who actually need what I offer for extended amount of time. Would it be more beneficial to let go of the small businesses and just only focus on the corporate clients?
If that's what you want to do, yeah. I mean, what you'll want to do is look at the type of clients. One, who do you love to serve? Who are the easiest to serve? Who are the ones who have the longer lifetime value? And who are the ones that are worth the most to you? And I know that like people hate to hear that because we don't want to think about our clients as just a number. But the truth is, every single one of us walking around in this world, with every business that we interact, every time I go to the grocery store, I have a dollar amount above my head. I am worth a certain amount of money to my grocery store. I'm worth a certain amount of money to my gas station, to all of the things. And so, what do we want? We want every business wants the value on our head to increase. They want us to be worth more to them. So, as a business owner, you have to say, what type of client do I want to serve? It doesn't mean that you have to go all in. It means that you might have the capacity to serve X percentage of small businesses because you want to, but you want 75% of your revenue to come from, larger corporations, B2B.
Yeah, makes sense. Um, let's see. Of your profit, what percentage should be for the owner's draw,
I
and what
love,
percentage goes
okay.
back into the business?
I love this question. So, your profit, okay, and I'm speaking out of accounting terms, okay? So, based on the pricing overhaul method, we cannot confuse owner's draw as profit, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. When you pay yourself as an owner's draw, according to the IRS, that is profit. That is solely for tax reasons, okay? That has nothing to do with what you have to pay yourself as an owner operator. So if Erin Haag has to pay herself $100,000, regardless of if I pay myself on owner's draw, shareholder distributions, payroll, I consider that $100,000 as part of my payroll expense. That way, the 30% profit that's left over belongs to the business. Your owner's comp is not your profit. You do not pay yourself from your profit. Now, your accountant has you file it differently for tax reasons. That's a whole different story. I am not a CPA, but when you have that profit, there are then three things that you can do with that profit because it belongs to the business. The business can choose to bonus you as the owner. The business can choose to pay down debt. The business can choose to reinvest back into the business. But I would always keep at least half of your annual profit in your business as cash reserves so you have some working capital.
So, great advice. What strategies have you successfully deployed when experiencing unexpected but significant halts to recurring revenue?
Like,
Economic shifts, industry disruption.
uh-huh. So in a recurring revenue model, economic shifts do not impact the business as much. They just don't. Um, Pandemics, COVID happened, and all but six of my clients were able to maintain their businesses, even if their brick and mortar doors physically had to close, because and thanks to recurring revenue. I think
Mm,
business owners, and this probably isn't the most popular opinion, but I believe that we blame economic conditions too much for the financial health of our businesses. I think we put way too much weight into it.
yeah. Let's see. What complementary back-end processes can help fuel growth in combination with the pricing strategy?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, what complementary back-end processes can help fuel growth in combination with the pricing strategy? So what financial systems, contract management, or other CRM tech
I see.
practices?
Okay. So you're asking loaded tech questions that I outsource. And I wish my brilliant business manager, Haley, was here because she has everything set up and automated. You definitely need to have some automations in place. The systems that I use, I mean, I use Kajabi. I use platforms that are kind of all in one. Um, but I also believe in being honest about my strengths and weaknesses, and the back end tech is not my strength. I pay somebody to set that up for me.
Love that. Outsource non-superpowers.
Yes, that is not my superpower. I was just saying before this call, I still can't like physically understand and comprehend how the internet works.
Mm.
I don't have any understanding or comprehension of how that this works.
I struggled in chemistry because my teacher didn't have an electron microscope, and I was like, I'm not convinced that H2O actually looks like that. There's another question here, and I know you covered it, but somebody raised their hand. How do I know when I've underpriced my product or service?
When you do a profit analysis and your profit is below 30% and you're not paying yourself what you need.
Perfect. We're running out of questions. Our friend Gail said experiments as in lean startup methods as an MVP, and then sounds like you run pricing changes with a set of customers first, and then she says, I get it, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. And then somebody said they just put a question in the chat. The chat has all of these otters that are just somebody just said they got your course. Awesome. When
Hey.
your business model's member only club, things like a pandemic shutdown cost. Shutdown does mean recurring revenue is harder to do. Do you recommend a pivot or service?
It's
Service?
actually most of my clients during the pandemic were member only businesses. Most of them were brick and mortar. A lot of them were boutique fitness studios because the first company I sold was a very large three location Pilates and yoga studio. So
Awesome.
it actually made it easier and they were able to survive because it was simply a pivot in how the service was delivered, not the service offering. So clients were still committed to the service. And even if they couldn't physically come into the doors, our the businesses were still servicing and delivering their services. Just the vehicle for delivery was different.
Yeah. Keep them coming. How do you set your pricing for a consulting service when you're trying to get your first customers?
Yeah, so I have this calculation. It's called your minimum monthly revenue needed based on target margins and target markers. I actually, in my book, in part two, I take you through this exercise. And what you do is you determine your monthly revenue needed, break even with 10% profit, with 20% profit, with 30% profit. And then you determine what your capacity for clients is. And you determine how much each client must be worth to you. If this is your capacity for clients and this is how much money on a monthly basis you want to generate. That number, monthly client value, is the price point that you set for your initial service. It's actually setting prices for new businesses is the easiest.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of questions in the Q&A box, but we still have Erin for a little bit of time. So if you want to drop them in, then feel free. But Erin, as we're gonna see if there's any last minute questions.
Yeah.
If somebody was gonna dial into the last 5 minutes of this call, what's one thing you want them to take away today?
Um, that we as business owners put too much weight in our competition. And we really, our competition doesn't matter as much as we believe our competition matters. And in fact, the higher priced you are in your market, you create a market of one, and it's actually easier to sell. People automatically see your price and they're like, oh, that must be better. I want better. And it's just easier to sell.
Yep, I love that. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing all of the lessons learned through your two exits. So congratulations on those again. And for everybody online, thank you for joining us. We've got a ton of resources that Erin has shared with us. So check those out. Get in touch with her on LinkedIn. Follow all of the things. They're all great. And thank you again, Erin.
Thanks for having me. It was so much fun.
Alrighty, well, for those of you still on, thanks for joining us. Fill out the survey, check out Erin's resources, and we look forward to welcoming you all online soon. Thanks again, everyone.